during the period of time that he was mayor, I started focusing on the fact that he came in at $5 billion, and he wasn't supposed to be active in Bloomberg LP, and strangely, automatically, it was over $20 billion by the time he left. And so I thought, particularly in the circumstance of Occupy Wall Street, we needed to focus on how his wealth was structured. And what I noticed is that when he came in, there were like 40 offshore things, you know, Bloomberg Cayman Island LLC, those kinds of things, not necessarily something where he was tax evasion, but just structuring of great wealth. So I took these conflict of interest forms to Jeffrey Sachs, respected professor, and he said, Bob, this is a structure of great global wealth that is now beyond the ability of nation states to hold accountable. And that was my aha moment to understand that human beings have a real problem with borders, right? You can be put in a cage, you can be killed trying to cross one. But if wealth travels without a passport, without making any apology, and the nations of the world now are begging and vying to draw that wealth and will do anything just to have it parked for a while in their country. That's part of this great building of wealth inequality and wealth concentration.
So what did Mayor Bloomberg say when you pressed him on his offshore investments?
He was like, I have businesses all over the world. Like, it was such a non-starter. It was basically, you know, his attitude was, this isn't tax avoidance. This isn't transfer pricing, which is a gimmick that's used. I do business around the world, and it's required that you have licenses in those places to do business. But without the numbers, without the receipts, without the tax return, it's impossible to know. And this was happening, by the way, when he was saying that we needed to repeal the Bush tax cuts, and then everyone should pay more in taxes across the board in a sense of shared national sacrifice. So it seemed fair to ask him, well, what are you paying? And he refused to do it. He also said, and particularly his aides would say, we can't release this because this would have a negative business consequence. And this will echo to people this thing we've lived through with Donald Trump, where is it a private business, is it a presidency? Because he put the business of preserving his confidentiality and the value of his assets for a competitive advantage over the important transcendent value of civic disclosure. And civic disclosure is really just about humbling yourself because you want to be a public servant.
So, Bob Hennelly, talk about how Michael Bloomberg made his billions. He didn't inherit this wealth.
No, and that's the most endearing part of the story is, you know, he's a self-made individual, parked cars to get through college, came to New York City, got a great job with Salomon Brothers, a Wall Street firm, got laid off after several years there, got a $10 million parachute, which is nice. And out of that, he created the Bloomberg LP. And what is that really? There's these really smart machines, terminals, that you have to have for real-time pricing for assets. So if you want to move a bunch of foreclosed homes or mortgage-backed securities or whatever you want to move through the Cayman Islands, you got to have one of these terminals. So these are all over the world, and it provides real-time information for all these transactions. So indeed, the financialization of the planet, the proliferation of debt, all the things we've seen that are the engines of the concentration of wealth, the global wealth machine, were facilitated by Bloomberg terminals.